Here's a name that's been requested several times in the comment section, Zach Edey. That's who we're gonna look at today. What's up everybody, it's JJ Buckets. You know what's going on, so usual drill, make sure you're leaving a like on the video, helps the algorithm out a ton. You already know that. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing any responsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. I know Zach Edey is the hometown kid. I know he's from Toronto. I know a lot of people feel a personal connection to this one. And I know it's not gonna be popular to say anything negative about this possible selection, yet gonna do it anyways. But before I get to that, obviously we are gonna kick things off as usual with the strengths. It does not take a rocket scientist to figure out what the strong points are gonna be when it comes to Zach Edey. At the end of the day, size is still size, and Edey's frame, I mean, the dude is massive. Clip that for a meme if you want, but yes, Zach Edey's size is very obviously his biggest strength going into the draft and going into the pros. Zach Edey is a very commanding force down low, often drawing double teams because teams found a hard time dealing with a player of that stature, right? Like, that's just how it is. Like, the dude is fucking big. And it's hard handling somebody that big, especially at the college level, which is gonna be a key thing coming up later. Spoilers, obviously. All that being said, yes, like his frame makes him a dominant force down low. He's tough to deal with, and that is naturally going to lend itself well to the sport of basketball. We've obviously seen dominant figures like Yao Ming in the NBA before. Some people I've seen compare him to Yao. I don't know how I feel about that one personally, but just know that that comparison is out there. It definitely is. Some people have compared him to Boban as well, and I definitely don't think he's, respectfully to Boban, who's very obviously an NBA pro, I don't think he's as uncoordinated as Boban. I actually think one of his biggest strengths is his improvements with his footwork, and he's had improvements with his lateral quickness. Like, those things are gonna matter when you're a player of that size, because if you are just stiff as all hell and like barely moving on that block, like, teams are not going to be able to trust you despite the fact that you have such impressive size. And I think it's commendable to Edey, the fact that there is noticeable improvement in that regard. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that didn't look at that and go, And I think that kind of stuff has really helped elevate his draft stock. There were times where Edey was viewed as a second round pick in this whole process. Now, if you look into mock drafts, you'll probably find him probably as a lottery pick, or at the very least, like in the middle of the first round, you know, like a good mid-round pick. And it just so happens that Toronto obviously has a draft selection there thanks to the Indiana Pacers. And the fit kind of makes sense as well, naturally, where you have the Raptors, who could probably use a 5 after losing Koloko and obviously trading some guys, shaking up the roster. Like, the need is there. Is this the guy to fill it though? I think that's really the question at the end of the day, right? Because they'll have the pick in the range that he should be selected, and I think they should get an opportunity to take a stab at him if they want to, but will they want to? The problem with a player like Zach Edey is the fact that most of his strengths you can also turn around, find the double edge, and find the weakness of that strength, right? Like, naturally, Edey's selling point is gonna be his size. Again, I don't think that's a secret to anybody. At the same time though, will that size be able to reasonably hold up at an NBA level versus a college level, right? Because in college, where obviously the athletes aren't as good, a lot of these guys won't turn pro, or at the very least won't be NBA pros. Can where he is currently at athletically keep up in the NBA? Because I think you can make a solid argument that he won't be able to. I think you can argue that despite the improvements in his movement, in his footwork, it's still not at the level it needs to be for him to, you know, hold his own defensively, for example, at the NBA level, right? Because the NBA is a faster game. The NBA is a more spaced out game. Like, there's vast differences to college and the NBA. Not that I feel like I need to point that out to people, but I think I still need to say it out loud to really, you know, help drive the point home of why I think there are question marks and certainly red flags around all this stuff, because the spacing in modern day basketball could very well just result this guy just getting played off the court sometimes, right? A lot of the times, maybe even, quite frankly. I'm going to use an extreme example here just to make a point, but imagine a player like Luka Doncic. One of Luka's favorite things to do, if you watch him, is mismatch hunt, right? In particular, obviously, they're going against the Clippers right now. Historically, one of Luka's favorite things to do would be hunt a guy like Ivica Zubac defensively. Get that switch, and then as soon as Luka sees that switch, you know what he sees? He sees barbecue chicken every single time. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that Zubac is probably, not even probably, like Zubac is a more capable NBA level defender. Edey has no realm of switchability. And even in drop coverage, if you're gonna make that argument where it's like, yeah, well, you can use him as a drop coverage big, again, like just in terms of the footwork and the lateral quickness, while it is improved, I would still struggle to see him just keeping up with NBA athletes, even in that role. And naturally, again, I'll leave this to the fact that these things can still continue to improve. But again, like, think about Edey's big strengths, right? He plays great bully ball in college. I don't think you're gonna be able to get away with that at the same level in the NBA as you did in college. If you're Zach Edey, I think there's still times where that can be effective for him, but on a consistent night-to-night level, I just don't think you're gonna be able to just defer to that, especially considering that Edey outside of the paint doesn't really do much for you. And I understand that that's not his role, that's not who he is as a player. But I mean, I would say that's kind of my point, is where's the value that he brings you outside of the paint, right? Like, and sure, like, I think if you're making the argument that this guy could be maybe like a 15 minutes a night rotational player and just you're trying to play bully ball, you're trying to force some mismatches in the post. And to his credit, Edey has a decent feel for even passing out of that post where the double comes, but not a good enough feel, quite frankly, to consistently be effective at it at the NBA level. There's just a lot of concerns when it comes to him as a player. Now, to an extent, I think some of these things can be worked on. Like, I really do think athletically you can try to see if you can get some added mobility, some added nimbleness to your game. And you've seen him kind of do that, obviously, from year 3 to year 4 in college. But at the same time, like, it is tough to not look at this guy and to an extent look at where basketball is now and think to yourself, the game has kind of passed by for this type of NBA player. I think if you're talking like the mid 2000s or something, like Edey is an electric prospect, you know? With the way the game was played then, you're looking at Edey and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, this guy's a top 10 pick, you know? But just with the evolution of basketball over the decades and the emphasis on spacing now in the NBA and just athleticism and just creating in that space and putting defenders on an island sometimes, there's just so many different ways that Edey can get exposed at the next level that it's gonna raise a lot of concerns. Somebody is gonna take a chance on this guy at the end of the day, and you know what? Maybe it does work out, but realistically speaking, from where I'm sitting, there's a version of Edey at the next level. I think that's a solid rotational player, but the ceiling, I think, of what he's gonna be at the NBA, personally speaking, I am not quite sold on it. I'm not gonna lie to all of you, of all the draft profiles that I knew I was gonna do on this channel, this was the one that, to an extent, I was looking the least forward to because, you know, having watched college basketball this year, like I kind of had that opinion the entire time of Edey. You're fully entitled to disagree and you're fully entitled to be mean to me in the comment section. That being said, that's my 2 cents on Edey. Usual drill at the end of these videos. First of all, thank you for making it to the end. Second of all, drop a like if you're still watching, much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Other than that, folks, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure, and I will see everybody next time.